Tip of the day number 1. It is normal to feel sad, stressed, confused, scared or angry during a crisis. Talking to people you trust can help. Contact your friends and family. Need help and support? Please contact us at the hotline 311, psychosocial support at 722-6575 or 518-4157. Brought to you by PAHO, the OACS Commission, and UNICEF.
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the hosts, co-hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of UTV or its affiliates.
Hello and welcome. This is the Revolution. This is also UTV Underground Television, channel 124 on Flow. Sending special shout outs to those over on Hits Radio, our radio station partners, 92.1 in the north, 91.1 in the south. All those who are growing the YouTube presence on UTV 124 on YouTube, Twitch, never forgotten, and of course Instagram, as well as our Facebook warriors there, feeding and making sure that the influx and welcoming all of the UWP hacks that have been told to come to try to disrupt what we're doing. But it's all good, because at the end of the day, if they're trying to disrupt, that means that they don't want you to know, and they themselves don't want to know for themselves. And the best part is when they can identify the difference between right and wrong. Because if they can identify the difference between right and wrong, and there's so much wrong that this government has done, then how do they justify their support? There we go. We have 2 birthdays. I just want to send out birthday greetings to a great-grandson, Javion Gajada of Forest there, who turns 5 years old today, coming from his grandmother and the entire home circle. And also happy birthday to Irvin Bellas and Marvin Francis from their mom, Priscilla, and from their moms, Priscilla and Cecilia. Hoping everyone has a great day today. I must admit, even though I still have a ton of mud under my home, that now coming from the chauffe weather yesterday, the heat is hot in terms of the sun. And in St. Lucia, things are heating up politically. And you have to understand the principle. It actually is a mobster term. It's called a rat hole. And what is a rat hole? Well, the mobsters, and you had that mainly in the New Jersey and New York areas when it came to the mob bosses and the union bosses and so on in the United States in the days of Al Capone and all the way up to an extent now. And you know, you remember all the documentaries and drama series built around that. A rat hole is when a criminal person or a government official, or maybe a mixture of the two, will give money to an illegitimate business or give money to a business in general and get money back. So they put it in the rat hole, it gets laundered or cleaned. Sometimes it can be a casino or whatever, or it can be a liquor company. You know, you just stay there, and because the turnover rate of liquor and all the rest, it's hard to track how the money became legitimate, and it comes right back out legitimate. And you have a series of things happening in St. Lucia where, as we head into elections, there are government officials who want to give money to their friends, people who they may have shares in those businesses, or they have interest in those businesses, and then they will get some back for their personal self, for their own use in politics. And the people who have those businesses also have a vested interest in keeping those people in power, because that's how they get the access to the trough. And no matter how meager the resources are, they will get whatever it is, the lion's share. So I've always said, you have, let's say there's 100 loaves of bread, they will not come and say, give me 5 or give me 10 out of greed, when all 100 is supposed to go to the people. You'll have people that will come and say, I want 80. No, give me 100. Go and borrow more for you to give me more. And that's what's happening. St. Lucia is being killed by corruption. So I'm going to walk you through now. I want you to see. I want you to think that with regards to construction in St. Lucia, which is the hardest for people to estimate and guesstimate, it's a real economic earner for people, especially at the top in terms of contractors, that even the smallest contractor in a small rural community somewhere will have a 2-ton dump truck, will have some power tools, will have maybe a backhoe or some piece of heavy equipment, whether they took a loan or they bought one secondhand, whether it's Komatsu, whether it's now Hyundai, whatever it is, right, Caterpillar. You had those things, and you had companies that built themselves up. I mean, there's always governments that will give contracts depending on your capacity and so on. But for the most part, whether you're UWP or Labour, you had people who were in the industry who, even if you gave them preference or favoritism, at least they had the plausible deniability of being in the industry. Now, we have reached the nuclear level where people literally create companies out of nowhere and giving them direct awards left, right, and center. And the worst part is, remember, direct awards are supposed to be for exigent circumstances, emergencies. When something has to be done so urgently, like after a hurricane or in something happens in healthcare, there's a fire to St. Jude's or something like that. But no, now it has just become standard operating procedure under this UWP cabal. So where do we start today? I'm going to take you down a redundant, repetitive exercise. Multiple choice? No, not really. It's only going to be one choice over and over made by this government. So let's start with the Fresh Start.
The Fresh Start Construction Company says it inspired the Ministry of Infrastructure's confidence by the manner in which it handled post-Hurricane Tomas rehabilitation projects. From there, according to the company, the ministry realized that Fresh Start was one of the top companies it could turn to in times of emergency. But the big question is, why does the company not participate in the bidding process to safeguard its reputation? Company Director Peter Felician answered by saying that it is subjected to a negotiation process by the ministry.
Contrary to what has been said, Tim, that we're just given projects. This is not the case. We go through a process of negotiation that with the technocrats at the Ministry of Infrastructure or whatever entity that we're dealing with.
So contrary to the tendering process, contrary to what we're saying, that people like me are saying that they just keep getting direct awards. They just keep getting direct awards and they're not open to tendering. They don't have to go through the tendering process. So far, Fresh Start has not gotten any work that has not been direct awards. They have not been out there tendering for how many different jobs. But let's forget that. Let's head the defense. They are put through a rigorous negotiation process. But who calls you in to negotiate? How did they get to know you to call you in to negotiate? So if Stephenson King calls you in to his Ministry of Infrastructure to negotiate, or the Prime Minister calls you in to negotiate, or Guy Joseph calls you into economic development, or Mary Isaac calls you into health, oh no, that's Guy Joseph as well, or all of the other ministries call you in, how do they know to call you in when your company did not exist? And why are they calling you Fresh Start as opposed to calling other companies? And then why not open up to tender? But then again, right out of the gates, they did a housing project, even though they had zero track record, not only in housing projects or roads or houses or anything. They had zero track record to the point where they did not even have a truck.
Now Spider and a few others spoke about friends, family, and foreigners. Fresh Start. I know you are being criticized, but you have delivered. Now you may be wondering why we opening a housing project with no houses. The contractor, Fresh Start, You hear about them on the media, you hear all the criticism. And the good thing about them, they don't own a truck. So all the trucks in the community was hired. Even some of those who voted against me, their trucks were on this project working.
So Fresh Start, that did not even own a truck, was given a multi-million dollars, a good $5 to $6 million construction project for housing project, and they delivered no houses. They did the concrete roads and the drains, right? And got cement from Chasney's family, his in-laws. Wow, how cozy is that? But what track record did they have in building houses? None. And after the housing project, what track record did they have in building houses? None. Because there were no houses. And what roads did they do? The roads lead you to the no houses, just to the lots. And yet they were given another direct award, backdated even, not for a ministry project down in Chasney's constituency, the now infamous Chasney Drive, also known as the road in Diga-Lacouville. Where they did the road, the Ministry of Infrastructure under Stephenson King had costed and estimated the road would cost $12 million. And yet it was done for direct award for 18.5.
Of even greater concern for the SLP, according to Pierre, is the recent award of contract to the same company for the rehabilitation of 6 kilometers of road in the Prime Minister's constituency of Micoud South.
The contract was awarded by direct award, without bidding internally or externally, for $15.9 million. The contractor has described the facility as design, build, finance, road rehabilitation loan, and has agreed to finance the full extent of the works.
Sand mining done by Fresh Start. Watch how they mine and all the coconut trees falling down. Man, if I had my way, I'd go in and collect these fellas, you know. And I tell you, I'm getting tired and sick of these fellas with the greed. And this is what the Prime Minister supporting.
Implementing over the next 3 years in St. Lucia.
What you do, you go and fool the people of St. Lucia. Have a ceremony to do what? To give it a name.
Mamai Flabo! That's super way! I'm only upset one thing, you know. Mr. DJ is supposed to be playing my song.
Mr. DJ!
I know everything is going to be all right, but for me,
So after sand mining and destroying the Micoud beach, not washing off the sand properly so that it's going to corrode the road elements like the BRC, not pouring the road to 5 inches all over, instead going 2.5 inches, and having air pockets, 27 days after doing the road, by direct award for $5.5 million more than the Ministry of Infrastructure even costed the road at, they did their first official road project, because don't forget Forester was a housing project in which they ended up doing some roads. So they moved from that and having absolutely no track record in building hospitals, they went down to St. Jude's, again a project overseen directly by His Imperial Majesty Guy Joseph. Yes, of course, because Halcrow, that was selected by Stephenson King, that had done at least 6 hospitals by then in places like the United States, in South America, and in Europe, and even won a 2015 award for hospital construction in Oregon, was retained by Kenny Anthony for obvious reasons, their institutional knowledge. So it wasn't a personal thing, right? And their obvious capacity to do the work. But no, Guy Joseph brought in Fresh Start. And then Fresh Start has been getting what? Is that $80 to $90 million for the construction of a half-finished hospital next to a half-finished hospital?
Tell us what transpired and when did that happen? What really happened?
February the 8th that happened to me.
So it happened before the COVID?
Yeah.
Okay. You were employed at St. Jude's in VA4?
Yeah.
And you worked indirectly, you worked for a third party, ou travaille by a third party. By qui la soupe ka travaille?
By Monsieur Jean, from before.
Monsieur Jean, et vous ka travaille un project Fresh Start à St. Jude's?
Oui.
Dis-nous exactement qui ça qui arrive ou?
Ouais, mais j'attends et puis je passé, bah la sorte en main et puis je me watch it.
By la sorte en main yo?
Oui, upstairs la first floor, la sorte en main.
So qui ça yo tenu en main yo?
Un framework en fait.
Un framework eh ben? Un framework en fait. Et qui ça qui est un framework puis moi même pas faire en construction?
Bah là il y a un box column là.
Oh, ok. So la tenu yon en fait.
Oui, des quatrièmes les columns là, et puis passé de me watch it. Là moi lever yeux moi lever bois moi ça blast là même blast tout ça tellement double.
So il blast là mon et qui blast zota yo.
Oui.
Combien zota yo pèd?
Tous les 5.
Tous les 5 zota yo pèd. Et combien de tu pèd?
Toutes ces dettes là yo nam.
Toutes ces dettes là nam.
Oui, yo nam.
Et combien qui ça yo a fait ba ou? Est-ce là dans pièce insurance?
Ouais, le gros soin ben moi, c'est pas jamais fini moi de ça fait là.
You pas jamais vu wow.
No experience in hospital construction, yet direct award after direct award. And of course, purchasing all of their supplies and materials also through the treasury. Now, I want you to think about this, folks. You have a construction company. When you give the government your quote for you to do the job, it includes sand, and yet people are sand mining all over the place. It includes materials, but yet the Treasury and the government of St. Lucia somehow found itself paying over $12 million worth of materials for Fresh Start's work at the hospital. So they're buying from Mangal all the BRC, all the cement, the nails, everything, and then the government is buying that. So it means that now all Fresh Start has to concentrate on is the equipment that they have, which they got all their concessions for milling machine and trucks and cement mixers and all the rest of that. And then on top of that, they don't have to pay for materials because the government is paying for the materials. So that's like 1/3 of the cost right there. And then they give them to do the market. And the most brilliant thing about the market is they took the money that was meant for the overall market and then they called it Phase 1.
The first phase of the Castries Market Redevelopment Project was officially handed over to the Castries Constituencies Council on May 3rd, 2020.
They cried.
Who kept whispering in my ear, PM, make sure we fix those bathrooms. That is the respect that we must have for our own people. To have allowed this to have opened simply with a roof and a flooring and not have fixed up the bathrooms would have been the height of disrespect.
But you have a lot of crying to do still. You'll have a lot of crying to do. I'm telling you.
In the coming days, provisions vendors will move back to their permanent home in the Castries Market nearly 1 year after they were temporarily relocated to facilitate Phase 1 of the Market Redevelopment Project. When vendors made the transition in May of 2019, they were initially told that the project was expected to last 3 months. In a handing over ceremony on Sunday, May 3rd, CEO of Fresh Start Construction, Andy Lake, acknowledged what many have described as a lengthy delay in the project completion. According to Lake, the original project start date of February 13, 2019 was extended to April 10, 2019 due to several reasons.
Relocation of the vendors to the temporary location on Jeremy Street, the time it took to relocate the taxi drivers from the old Jeremy Street fire station before the vendors were relocated. Total delays were 52 days, of which 11 days were lost due to rain.
Most of the market, they were supposed to redo the areas where they slaughter the meats and where the restaurateurs are set up on vending areas. Instead, what did they do? They reduced the scope of works, because you saw the renderings where they had a propeller, where the boat's rowing thing is in the roundabout and everything. They had a thing looking like an old watchtower at Guantanamo Bay and all of that, and restaurants and upstairs and everything. And they reduced it to just the roof, the booths, and the bathroom. And the bathroom, main refurbishment, the painting and the plumbing, right? The roof was the most expensive thing that they did, and they tell you, oh, it can withstand 140 mile an hour winds. But the fact of the matter is, once again, the scope of works was reduced from doing 10 things to doing 3, and the market substantively, structurally, hasn't changed at all. Not the iconic part of the original market, but any of the additional or ancillary features. But there we go. And then the government did something even more fantastic. Even though there was roadworks at Geno costed again by the Ministry of Infrastructure, Stephenson King's technocrats, at $300,000, they gave a direct, not a direct award, because Fresh Start was supposed to do the road, design, finance, build. What was supposed to be for $300,000, a simple retaining wall and a road bypass at Geno on your way to Forester side there, right? Instead, the government actually guaranteed a loan for Fresh Start. Now, note well, all the time they've been getting all of these direct awards in terms of work, right? And there are other contractors all over, scores of contractors, 60, 80, 100 other contractors around St. Lucia. But the government wanted to be so accommodating to Fresh Start that they didn't just give them a direct award, but it's design, finance, build. So they were supposed to do it with their own money. But the government actually secured the loan for them in unprecedented fashion.
The country's broke.
I look at this insignificant
Apologies for the audio in that clip, but basically, you've seen it, you know that $3 million, where does that ever happen? Have the government ever gone to you and take you out of nowhere without even having a truck, give you direct awards left, right, and center, and then guarantee loans for $3 million on your name? I don't understand. And in all of that time, while they've been doing that, they have been getting duty-free concessions, publishing the Gazette for everything. Their trucks, their cement mixers, like I said, their milling machine, all their stone crushers, you name it, their heavy equipment, and everything else. But that's not enough. They still needed more incentives, even when they weren't legal.
Statutory Instrument 119 of 2020 is stirring up a storm. The regulation SI 119 of 2020 grants significant incentives to the Fresh Start Construction Company, which has been receiving the lion's share of government's contracts under this current administration. Former independent Senator Everestus Shamari says the wide range of incentives granted to Fresh Start Construction Company is deeply disturbing.
Is one that's very troubling, and I think it's an abuse of power, and I think it's illegal.
Statutory instruments are secondary legislations. The source of their authority, so to speak, is from specific acts of Parliament, in this case the fiscal incentives legislation. Therefore, any incentive provided to any business entity under the Fiscal Incentive Act must conform to the dictates of that act.
And what was perhaps most disturbing for me was the income tax element, the waiver of income tax. Very troubling, sinister, and it suggests something a lot bigger. A lot bigger. Because, I mean, having been granted a contract without having to compete for it, you're now saying to that entity, you don't even have to pay your dues to the society in terms of taxes. That is wrong.
So, does the Fresh Start company qualify for the generous incentive package under the Fiscal Incentive Act? The former independent senator, Everestus Jamari, thinks not.
There is nowhere in the act that speaks to providing concessions to construction companies. Nowhere. It is outside the powers of the cabinet to decide which services should be approved to do so. It's outside. It's a matter for the Parliament to decide, which has been decided. So to place the activities of Fresh Start, the construction company, as an approved service is ultra-vires, beyond the powers of the cabinet. And to act on it and provide it with the fiscal incentives which the act would have permitted is illegal. And I think it is very sad that this attempt to try and the way it is being crafted, the fact that Fresh Start in its construction work may be engaging civil engineers, architectural expertise, doesn't make it a service provider of these things.
Jamari says that such actions on the part of the government have serious and wide implications for the society as a whole.
It's a sad state of affairs in the country. It really troubles me. It really, really troubles me because, it's creating a culture of illegality and corruption, which is not good for our country. It is not good. It will impoverish us because there'll be an unfairness in the society, and it will create crime. And because what is going on there is, do it if you can get away with it. And we can't encourage that. We are too small for that. I mean, it's not encouraged anyway. People go to jail for this, and it's about time politicians pay with their freedom for acting that way. I really believe so, because to carry on like this, I think we're going to destroy the country this way. We have too little to go around for some people to believe that they must have all of it.
Got that concession as the evidence is there. Why? If it's wrong, it is wrong. So when Jamari will attack something of that nature, what is his motive? What is his intention? One time it was asphalt and mining that belonged to Guy Joseph. Yeah. Now it's Fresh Start that belonged to Guy Joseph. So they feel that something unbecoming has happened. People need to move away from that foolishness in St. Lucia. I tell them, I declare all what I have to the Integrity Commission, contrary to what you would hear them say. So if they stop attacking these people because you think some politician, so as a local contractor in St. Lucia, he is not entitled because some politician made you believe or tell the politicians that tell you that there's somebody with shares in the business. Come, bring the evidence and show that there is. Because all companies are registered, all companies have their shareholders, they have what is declared.
Show you what was given, and now show you the underlying legislation, the law, the act.
About Fresh Start. They make a big hullabaloo, and then I'm watching and seeing who, you seen signatures of the Prime Minister, who was at the time, during the Labour Party administration, giving 100% waivers, Andre, excise and income tax for a number of companies to the tune of how much money that this would add up to. But in 2020, during an election time, you have certain people stating those things and talking about going to jail. So why they didn't uncover and make those people at the time there go to jail? My point is, if you're saying wrong is wrong, why are you wrong in 2020? It wasn't wrong in 2009, 13 or 15?
But the big question is, why does the company not participate in the bidding process to safeguard its reputation?
Our prices are competitive, and that is why we win contracts.
What I know is how to use money to gain wealth.
An approved product means a product declared by order of the cabinet under Section 5 for manufacture. For manufacture by an approved enterprise. You all know the word for manufacture, the word manufacture by an approved enterprise. Now, let's go to the meaning of enterprise. Enterprise means a company incorporated and engaged or is about to engage in an industry. Listen well, industry, we heard about manufacturing and industry. Let us now check the meaning of industry. Industry means, and it's defined in the law, I didn't make it, a manufacturing or processing industry. Okay? A manufacturing or processing industry. You all are hearing this? And it includes others that form part of integral processing operation. A manufacturing or processing industry. You can take it down. So folks, before any company can be granted incentives under this act, they must be involved in manufacturing or processing. In the manufacturing industry or in the processing industry. Are you all hearing me? I didn't say it. The law says it. The law clearly says, before you can give any company any kinds of concession under this piece of legislation, under this act, the company must be involved in manufacturing or processing. I didn't see. Now, the question is Fresh Start operating in the processing industry? Guy Joseph, I'm asking, is Fresh Start operating in the processing industry? Okay, what's the answer? No. Is Fresh Start, like Bryce, operating in the manufacturing industry? Guy Joseph, answer. Is Fresh Start operating in the manufacturing industry? If Fresh Start is not in the processing industry and it is not in the manufacturing industry, and we all know Fresh Start is a construction company, Fresh Start is entitled to absolutely zero, no incentive under this piece of legislation.
Hey Russell, missed the timeline of the discussion on the fiscal incentives. Question, have you read the said Fiscal Incentives Act? No, and I don't want to read it. I'm not interested. Yes, I just come in and just have a nice 1 hour. Bon. And the said fiscal, and B, do you know the intent of the act? I.e. its origin, etc. C, would you be aware that the act has a regional harmonized focus? Sorry I emulate on the debate, but I was watching another program which quotes your commentary in partially informed background, partially informed background, which can be misleading to your listening audience. forget the political persuasion, but you need to correct what you were saying, clearly not factual. So I said, hey, please expound. What did I say that was misleading? So the two ticks came up the following day, and since then the person has not responded. Let me tell you something. All the gurus and the knowledgeable people, etc., why all them bloody well call me and say, boy, I like your take on the COVID, you know, or on Trump, or on regional unity, you know, or on the farts, that show there, on the farting, or on man-woman business. As long as it's politics.
And while Russell would rather talk about farting, except that they always do whatever the United Workers' Party government wants done in terms of politics when Shastney and Guy want to call in or have some hidden agenda, the fact of the matter is that a company named Fresh Start, which did not even own a truck according to Guy Joseph's own admission, has received incentives legally and illegally, has literally been involved in projects that it had no track record in doing, hospitals, markets, roads, all by direct award, housing projects, all by direct award. Since then, they've also done the housing project in their name as a partner over at Sunny Acres, and all of the earthworks that were done, the soil, which the state paid for whatever earthworks, was actually put at Timothy Mangal's foundation for his building over at Bois de Ouage, and nothing for that. Then they built the concrete road for Casabar. The people of Casabar have been overdue. So happy they got a concrete road, although it was really to facilitate Cabot. And again, another direct award. So, you know, what about the other? I mean, there are, don't worry, between Nationwide, Skelly, CPAL, FDL, and so on, there are about 12 of them that Guy Joseph and the government have been giving direct awards to, but nowhere near. Fresh Start obviously has gotten the lion's share as the fresh company. But that said, there are good 60, 80, 100 other contractors that cannot get GWEC. So let's go to some of the other roads. Let me see, where could we start? Oh yes, Bel Air. Bel Air is the place in Castries Southeast where the people who Guy Joseph believed voted for him and are voting for him, they get the road done. And on the other side, which is supposed to be more of a stronghold for Labour Party people, nothing was done. But it's a very nice road. Fresh Start Direct Award, smoother than Cap Estate could ever be, except if you go in by Daisy Home. And while I am very happy for the people of Bel Air, very happy that they got that great road, I'm also curious as to ulterior motive. Are there any ministers who have housing developments in that exact area, and that could have facilitated the ulterior motive of also having Fresh Start by direct award doing that road? And speaking of ministers and conflict of interest, what about in Soufrière, where Herod has acquired 14 acres of land and now has, of all companies, guess who? Fresh Start, doing a road down to Belmont, down to Old French. Check it out.
Souffert boudier, moi d'où c'est gloise et moi oui mani moi. Herod dit fait moi souffert gloise et moi oui mani moi. Chasse dit fait moi souffert gloise et moi oui mani moi. Herod dit fait moi souffert gloise et moi oui mani moi. Chasse dit moi d'où c'est pas Herod un coup de soulier. Pas chasse musique coup de pied. Sorti pour les bas un truc que flabo hot pas à ouéter so gloise et moi oui mani moi. Herod dit fait moi souffert gloise et moi oui mani moi. Chasse dit fait moi tout péché dit yo las boudier yo pas qu'à lever. Yo pas des cas iPhone cause votre dédo les gars so gloise et moi oui money moi. Herod qui fait moi souffert gloise et moi oui money moi. Chasse qui fait moi souffert gloise et moi oui money moi. Herod qui fait moi souffert gloise et moi oui money moi. Chasse qui fait moi douce pas Herod de coup de soulier. Pas chasse musique coupée. Sorti pour les bas un truc après chasse ni comme beauté ou flash c'est beau ça là toujours diable ici blé pour cette lycée nous cette lycée hot couillon hot ouais manière bagaille manière bagaille bade vote baile bas s'ouvrir changer on t'a coûté gloire et moi oui money moi. Herod qui fait moi souffert gloire et moi oui money moi. Chasse qui fait moi souffert gloire et moi oui money moi. Herod qui fait moi souffert gloire et moi oui money moi.
So you have Bel Air and Castries Southeast, you have Belmont down to Robert, you have Soufre. Let's take in a couple from Babono. Let's try Bojis to Garade.
Corruption, 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 corruption. Corruption, 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 corruption.
Mr. Corrupt, I see your eyes. You're watching the money, the poor people's money. Shame on you. Love is saying there's no happiness, we living so every hour. Nobody care watching poor people suffer. There's a big space between the rich and the poor. Poor medication, only money disappear. For those we elected, nobody seem to care. But we're living at the for the money we relate. First come, first up, touching from the sun. If you show up with the money, boy, you better than no. Let's make this world a better place. Let's send this world for you and me. Let's burn corruption and lift the nation. Everybody attention, no complication. Make this world a better place. Let's send this world for you and me. Let's burn corruption.
They want to pass the government and politician look. Amazimano Sasila Abojo, Abisiki and leaders of tomorrow. Good life say we all got potential to use all abilities.
Corruption, corruption is killing the nation. Corruption, corruption is destroying the mission.
Now, let's stay in Babono because I'm still trying to find out how Marquis Estate, private land, Marquis Estate, although I heard some of Shasti's family or in-laws might have just bought land there, but that's okay. No, that's okay because corruption is the new normal. And Marquis Estate, who got to do Marquis Estate after they got all that business? Who? Fresh Start again?
basketball. I used to try a little volleyball. Nobody taught me to play ball.
So there you have Marquis Estate inexplicably being done, right? You have Bourges to Gara. What did I say earlier? I said Belmont is Belfort, sorry. Belfort to Rabat, an old French road. Then you have Bel Air and Castries South. I already spoke to you about the housing development thing in Sunny Acres. And I spoke to you about the road in Casabah. And this company that came out of nowhere didn't even have a truck. Oh, let's give another one. You know which one I like? I like Rodney Bay, because Rodney Bay is the first place I've ever seen sidewalks so high that you can fit 2-bedroom apartments inside them. It's fantastic.
The Ministry of Infrastructure, Ports, Energy and Labour hosted a media briefing to provide an update on the progress of the Rodney Bay Road Improvement Project, which is in its first phase of design implementation. The project is expected to alleviate traffic congestion along the busy Northern Highway, allowing commuters to get in and out of the Rodney Bay and surrounding areas with ease.
Barring unforeseen circumstances like acts of God or so on, the first phase should finish in approximately 4 weeks. From there, what we intend to do, which Shannon attempted to explain earlier, is we'll have consultations again with the stakeholders before we begin phase 2, so that we bring them on board so they can know what's happening. And what we attempted to do in phase 1 is to ensure that most of our work was done without hindrance of the traffic or the public at large. And that is why we did it at nights mainly. So most of the construction was done at nights, and if you see people there during the course of the day, it really was to do some preparation, and they were in the drains, no way it affects the traffic. So as you can see, traffic flows freely, and all of that is part of our consideration. And keeping in mind, as I said, the bulk of the work, unless we really can't, will be done in the nighttime.
The Rodney Bay Road Improvement Project is being executed by Fresh Start Construction Company Limited under a design, finance and construction arrangement.
Yes, a design, finance, construction arrangement, which generally means that you do the work and then you get paid years later. But they're already getting paid. And yet they've asked that the interest payments, which they're not entitled to because they haven't really started the work, let alone completed it for it to be certified, $600,000, sometimes 2 weeks, 9 days apart, going to Thief Money Mangal's company. And how did that happen? And wasn't Timothy Mangal a senator in government? How is that not? There's no conflicts of interest. What's really going on? And you're asking yourself, but they say that's just some. Aren't you all genuinely tired of me showing you fresh start, fresh start, fresh start, fresh start? I mean, even Guy's own family, even Guy Joseph's own family is, well, noticing a trend.
I'm noticing a trend here.
Okay.
Are there any other construction companies in St. Lucia?
Oh yes, I forgot. We must try to deal with housing, where Mangal and Guy wanted to exonerate Mangal and the conflict of interest of Fresh Start. So they had this big elaborate presentation on the Champagne, wow, Askisa show, for them to show how there are no conflicts of favoritism with regard to Fresh Start, except that, well, it's Fresh Start again.
Forestier was done. I don't think when Marigo was done, VAT was even part of the equation. The increase of price and the superior work that was done. So
when people will come, and I have no fear about speaking about these things, when people will come and accuse Fresh Start and say, oh, this is my company and this is this and this is that, I have no fear in coming and speak about these things, because when I was a child growing up, Hippolyte equipment existed.
That's right.
Building roads in St. Lucia. You think today I have the capacity to own Hippolyte equipment?
No way.
When Hippolyte equipment was a leading company, now companies rebrand themselves.
That's right.
They evolve after a period of time. One company that was known as that, they may change. And so, but let's put the politics aside. Show me one developer in St. Lucia who could have done that development at $6 a square foot and give you the quality of output that you have there on a project like this.
You remembered NHC when we found NHC with no money?
No money.
And we found NHC with all of its problems. In July of 2018, in consultation with the minister, I said, Minister, we need to do something bold. And we decided that PPP, based on the success in Forestier, that we had to continue with the public-private sector partnership arrangement. And so in July of 2018, we launched what was called a symposium. I don't know if you remember that. That was upstairs in the Ministry of Infrastructure's conference room, where we invited developers to view 11 sites around the island.
That's right, I remember
and
that.
we said, listen, we are willing to partner with you. We want you to partner with us. You will benefit from NHC's concessions, and let us do the joint developments. And I must tell you, to date, we have 2 successful developments ongoing in a record time. I mean, we talk about 2018 to 2020. By 2019, we already had a full set of development ongoing, and we were able to open Shock.
That's right.
Last year in 2020.
And look at the quality of the work that is being done in that area. And I'm not afraid to say, Fresh Start is that contract was given to another individual. And because COVID, another local person, because of COVID and the impact that COVID had on business, that particular developer decided they did not want to stretch their resources at that point in time. And because we needed to get the project going, then we ended up engaging. Fresh Start again gave us an offer, and we proceeded with them.
Fresh Start is top quality.
Because he is more valuable as a developer than sitting there as the chairman of NHC. Correct. What do you think the chairman getting? $1,000 a month for the kind of work that you have to do as chairman of NHC, and using his own expertise. Most of the things you see there, that was developed because, remember, he's an architect by profession. He worked at the Ministry of Planning. He's a developer. He's a contractor. It's a combination. So what I tell people is, when I appoint people to a board, I look around and I ask my colleagues in cabinet to give me the support. When the 2 years that Mr. Mangal was supposed to spend in the 3 years ended, I said, no. A lot of the things are not closed off yet. So he stayed an extra 6 months to help us get through. Then you heard they say, oh, Mangal and Guy.
Minister, any last words, Mr. Minister? Okay.
Chairman, what I would like to say, that I am a patriotic St. Lucian.
Yes, sir.
I believe in my country. I believe in putting country first. I believe that this country has been directly involved in my personal development. This is where I was born. This is where I raised. This is where I was trained. I did my education and so on. And this is where I will make my contribution.
And I am doing so, and I will continue to do so without fear and favor, whether I do it in the public sector or I do it in the private sector. So all the criticisms that may come, okay, despite the criticisms will come, I will continue to uphold my hand and to live up to the challenge whenever this government calls upon me to make a contribution to my country. I will also do so. In my private business, I will also continue to uphold the cause and to make a contribution to this country and to the development of the people of this country. And that is why I will be coming back here together with the owner of Fresh Start.
That's right.
So all of the sayings you're hearing on the talk shows and you're seeing checks being put up and you're seeing director's name and all those stuff being put up, we will get to the bottom of that.
Yes, sir.
We're going to get to the bottom of that because I can tell you, you see the model that we have developed between those two local companies in Fresh Start and Marigo Buildings Depot. This ought to be promoted. This ought to be emulated.
So has this iteration of the United Workers' Party and the Guy Joseph and Chasney and Stephenson King, Estee, Herod, Sarah and so on, have they all managed to normalize blatant corruption, conflict of interest and nepotism and profiteering off of government? Have they managed to normalize it? Does it even matter? We'll only know the verdict, I guess, in the elections if we do have free and fair elections. But I want to take you, because I'm sure you think I'm finished. And I actually had to cut out a lot that I would have put in. You remember when independence came and they decided they want to paint the CDCs like the schools? I don't know if you've noticed that Sarah has a particular affection for using Concreto herself, Cyril Donnelly. Right? In the same way that Stephenson King and Chasney and all of them use him. It's a very interesting relationship. We'll get to that in another show. Nonetheless, you saw the protests from many of the people, residents and people who live in the Darling Road area, New CDC area, because they have a grouping, an association of laborers and people who are looking for employment. Because let's face it, there's a lot of unemployment, and particularly during COVID, it was exacerbated. So the guys went on strike. Some of them were accommodated, others were not accommodated. But you have at least 160 to 200 residents and people who live in the Castries Central, and nobody should know that more than the district representative for Castries Central, Sarah Flood. And yet, after she built a car wash through Concreto again, it took her the last 4 years while she was doing other things before she got to casting the bus stand area, which were causing, because of the car wash, causing a lot of the mud to run up the cost of keeping the buses clean and so on. And yet she also found a way to take those same car wash guys who are rivals and in an unnatural alliance, forcing them to be together is what's going to happen, which is a recipe for disaster if you ask me, and undercutting and all predatory pricing. But on top of that, you also have the fact that of the 4 booths that were made, 2 were given to the guys who were washing the cars by the CDC, and the other 2, one was given to a political operative, not even from the constituency, from Castries North, and a relative of Sarah's, but we'll get to that another time as well. Because I'm just curious, after speaking with the guys, knowing that Sarah finally is getting to do the casting just before elections, that she's not giving any of those guys work to do the casting, even though they were the ones trying and lobbying to get the work for the last 3-4 years. All of the guys who operate small businesses, the little shops, wash cars, do little odd jobs and everything in that exact area, live in Darling Road and all on the environs, none of them got work. You know what they were told? Fresh Start is doing the work, and when Fresh Start does the work, they bring all of their people from their Castries Southeast constituency predominantly. And Sarah now had to tell the guys that they will get work in future projects. In other words, after elections. So after you starve for 4 years, they tell you vote and maybe we'll feed you after. So, sadly folks, I told you about Fresh Start, then I told you about Fresh Start. Then I showed you about Fresh Start incentives, Fresh Start in the hospital, Fresh Start getting direct awards, Fresh Start doing the roads, Fresh Start getting direct awards, Fresh Start getting interest payments, Fresh Start. And now, More Fresh Start.
Prime Minister Alan Shastney and Castries Central MP Sarah Flood-Bobra were spotted here yesterday, March 30th, in the General Conway Jean-Baptiste Street and the George V Park area. And coincidentally, work began on the holding area for the Grosley minibus drivers. It's been about 3 years since the drivers have publicly campaigned for dire repairs to the area, which has resulted in a lot more washing work on a daily basis for their buses. Relief has finally found itself here for them. The project was originally contracted to Concreto, owned by Cyril Donnelly. The estimated time of completion then was about 3 months. However, issues, chief among them financing, resulted in the project being temporarily shelved. Fresh Start is the company now tasked with the completion of the Grosley bus holding area. President Danny Edwards says, despite the numerous delays, the delivery is what is important now.
We welcome the works, whatever time that the work started, we welcome the works because it works well needed. It's about 2 to 3 years ago we negotiated that project and we promised to be taken place. Well, now almost hurricane season, so whatever work that has started, all I want to say it's going to bring some relief to the drivers. So we welcome the work. I don't want to criticize. I mean the time, but it's better than never.
Did you get the COVID-19 vaccine? Then you may experience one or a combination of side effects, or even no side effects at all. Side effects may include pain or tenderness in the area where you got the vaccine. You may also notice a little swelling or redness. To manage these, you may apply a clean, cool, wet washcloth or an ice pack over the area. Throughout your body, you may feel chills, fever, nausea, joint pain, tiredness, headache, or muscle pain. To manage this discomfort, you should get plenty of rest. Drink fluids, but avoid alcohol and caffeine. If you need to manage pain, you may take paracetamol, not aspirin. You may continue to take all medications prescribed for you for your health condition. Vaccinate. For you, for yours, for us.
The following is a paid political announcement.
On behalf of the community of Olemon Granny Dairy, we would like to say a heartfelt thank you to Senator Ferroponius for the work that she has commenced in our community. As a result of this, we now have access to quality roads and better drainage. We do appreciate it. We look forward to working with you in the future and we wish you the best of luck in the next general election.
We shall ensure that the running of the OKU is not privatized and remains under the control and management of government and the people of St. Lucia. Universal access to healthcare remains a priority of a Labour government, and we shall continue to process we started since we were last in office to establish a universal healthcare system. We believe that accessible and affordable healthcare is the greatest priority of an SLP government. As part of our healthcare system, we shall encourage and support healthy lifestyles as a complementary health policy initiative, because too many of our citizens suffer from non-communicable diseases like hypertension and diabetes.
The preceding was a paid political announcement.
Available at Red Dot in Grosile and Susie's Varieties in Bois de Wange and Vieux-Fort.
That is the village flooded to the brim. I wanted to show you a video, but I wanted to show it to you live. That's in the church ground. Flooded. All flooded, brother. Debris and all.
So that was yesterday in Micoud with the rains that, according to Andre Joai, lasted for 3 hours. But for those who are out of the country, I can tell you it wasn't 3 hours of intermittent and drizzle. It was fluid. And the amazing thing about it is when you look at that footage, there is nowhere that you can see that is not waterlogged. In other words, when he turned the camera and did a full 360, you saw water everywhere. And whereas I cannot tell what issues matter to the people of Micoud North for certain, even if I go down and I interview people, it doesn't necessarily mean I can get a sample serving. I do wonder how they feel knowing that Gail is sitting up at Zara Villas with production equipment from the Ministry of Education at her home and watching you all down there in squalor, suffering with regard to the flooding. I wonder what her response would have been.
Go out to vote, have your say, because what you see before you can only happen with your partnership, with your endorsement, by ensuring that you have the right party in government to deliver to you and your family.
She's definitely right about one thing. What she's doing, what Shasni is doing, what Sarah is doing, what Mary is doing, land and Canada, Mary, boy. Right? What Guy is doing, what Herod is doing, what Estee is doing, what all of them are doing can only happen if we endorse it. If you can look as a Micoud resident who was in that flooding yesterday by the church and environs in the Micoud village, and you can say, you know what, I want to give Gail an endorsement to do more and leave me in some projects where I just throw out some cacadantic work to do a little sidewalk, or I get a road project and it'll probably be another fresh start, or mega, because you know Gail like her uncles and all the rest of that type of stuff. But you see, the deeper question is about corruption. And I still ask the question, does corruption matter to St. Lucians, or does it only matter if they are not benefiting from it? And if they are benefiting from it, whether there's crap healthcare, horrible crime, the entire country is going down in economic distress and mismanagement, but if you get in a contract, does that then mean that none of those things matter? And I was trying to think of the surrogates, you know, the ones that like to sing for their supper, and I was, in fact, let me look for the ones that can sing.
Make way, baby. Make way, baby. Make way, baby. Daddy's coming home. Home to the arms of the one he loves, never more to roam. Make way, baby. Big boys come to stay, so lay a place at the table. Let's call it day. The call of the sea took me far away in search of wealth and fame. But this pain in my heart tells me I'm in love and I'm coming back to stay. Make way, baby, daddy's coming home to cuddle up to the one he loves, never more to roam.
There you have it. Many people don't know Rick Wayne as a great singer, an international star in terms of bodybuilding. But sadly, it's always difficult to watch somebody assail their own legacy, much like Josie is doing now. And of course, Rick Wayne and all the greatness that he has achieved, both here and abroad, somehow still finds himself back once again rationalizing tacit support for Shastney.
Sing for your supper and you'll get breakfast. Songbirds always eat. Sing for your supper and you'll get breakfast. Songbirds always eat. Now is the time to sing for your supper and you'll get breakfast. Songbirds are not dumb. Sing for your luncheon and you'll get dinner. Dine with wine of choice. Sing for your supper and you'll get breakfast. Songbirds are not dumb.
And I'm sure the theorists would be happy to know I didn't come back because I want to boost Alan. And I didn't come back because I want to hurt my friend Philip, better known as Pip. And I didn't come back because my son, I have to, because that's the favorite thing, two favorite words. Liar! He's a liar! He's a professional liar! Yeah. I didn't come back for that. My son does not need any government job. He does not need it. It ought to put a stop, but I don't think it will, to those who believe Rick Wayne kissing Alan Shastney butt, kissing Alan. I'm not averse to kissing the odd butt, but it's got to be on the right person and gender. And in any event, on a serious note, we in St. Lucia, anytime a guy is doing his job right, he's turning up for work on time, he's doing what's expected of him, he goes the extra mile on his job because he wants promotion. When promotion time comes, he wants to be the man first thought of. So he puts in the extra mile, etc. In St. Lucia, that man is a house slave. He's a house slave. He's a house nigger, etc. Just think about that. Black people calling black people house nigger or house slave. So who are the plantation owners in this case? Who owns the house? See how stupid that is? A country of black people suffering perhaps the worst blows that black people suffer anyway just because of their color. But they're the first to be calling people aslika and house slave and field slave. And all I want to know from them is, who is the plantation man? I had a friend in England, we were having a conversation. And I said to him, every time I speak contrary to what the opposition wants to say about something Alan Shastney said, they think I'm defending Alan Shastney. And he interrupted. He says, Rick, I don't. I know exactly what you're doing. A smart guy. And he's a St. Lucian. He knew damn well I wasn't defending Alan Shastney. I was underscoring how stupid were Alan Shastney's critics. And that means if Alan Chasney is a dummy and the opposition are dummies, we're in deep doo-doo. Deep doo-doo. So, when Alan Chasney said, the truth is what you believe to be true. Whoa! I won't even go into the details of that. Let me have that book covered, you know. You see that? You see that? And it's all about that. Now you can take it off. Let me give a couple examples. I know a priest who believes in God and all the things we hear about God. And he also believes in bolams. And whatever you want to tell him, first of all, he believes that Christ walked on the water. He believes Christ turned into wine. He believes all those kind of things. Fine. He also believes in bolams. He writes books about bolams. We believe in bolams so much that we had a CMO who wrote books on bolams and exorcism.
St. Lucians, the truth is what you believe the truth to be. And sometimes when people give you stories, it's easy to say, boy, that's the truth. Because I don't trust people.
So I'm trying to search for the truth. Because I'm trying to understand, genuinely trying to understand. First of all, how you say you're not singing for your supper, but then you proceed to sing for your supper. That's one. You say that you are not doing what you're doing, but you give no reason or evidence to substantiate why you are not doing what you're doing. But then the other part about it is this. Here is somebody who is literally part of the tapestry of our politics. Somebody who used to rail against Compton and then became Compton's first press officer and created a Vanguard newspaper. Somebody who my father had as an independent senator and then Kenny Anthony fired him as an independent senator. Somebody who would be on the Mount Rushmore of politics without ever St. Lucia's Mount Rushmore of politics and not even running a seat. And yet somehow, for all of the greatness of being in the same conversation and standing next to George Odlum, next to Kenny Anthony, next to my father, next to Compton, and all of these people, somehow, for the first time, have you ever seen him have to be so obsequious when it comes to Chasney? And then I have to ask myself, this is the same person that has been railing against corruption for however long. And is he analogous of a bigger problem in St. Lucia? That somehow you can support Alan Chasney and still pretend that you have a problem with corruption.
That's where we are. The truck St. Lucia is at the end of the line, no matter who tells you anything else. I have discerned a culture in St. Lucia of studied indifference, or, at the very least, inattention to the practice, even the concept of public accountability. A cultural climate in which administrative torpor is often the consequence, and malpractice in government, including corruption, can thrive, not can exist, can thrive. So St. Lucia is a place where corruption thrives. You can't handle the truth. That's the problem with St. Lucia. And if you can't handle the truth, all you're going to do is listen to stupid television programs with people interviewing themselves. People, it's a new thing. Politicians with all kinds of record that you know about and pretend you don't know, you kick it down the road so that it comes across in that concrete thing I told you at the dead end. You pretend politicians that you know are crooks, that have a record of corruption and everything else. You pretend they are saints if they say what you want to hear them say.
So the phone lines are open at 5727588 and 4847-588. But I cannot miss the obvious irony of somebody speaking like they should be speaking to themselves. I don't get it. I don't get it. For example, no matter what agreements or disagreements I have with Philip Pierre, I genuinely do not believe that he is corrupt. But how do you support Shasney, beat your ass about corruption and lies and dishonesty, and then make like it doesn't, like as if Shasney is not part of that, or Guy is not part of that, or Ezekiel is not part of that? How do you not see the conflict of interest of Ezekiel giving his best friend mega contracting to do work and taking stones from Ezekiel's quarry to do the work and direct awards? But yet you cannot find the mall that Kenny Anthony built. You can't find it. So why is there the double standard? I don't understand. And if you can rail for so many years about so many things, and at the end of railing for so many years about so many things, have it still be corruption thrives in St. Lucia, then does that not mean that you may well be an inadvertent or maybe just an enabler? I don't understand. How do you support Shasney and pretend to be anti-corruption? How can somebody support Shasney? Not just about Rick, it's about all. How do you support Shasney? And if you say, well, because the Labour Party had instances before, I thought, one, that you voted to change that, and two, if it proves that you know right from wrong, then tell me, if somebody steals $5 and somebody else steals $5 million, which one is worse? Now you'll say the biblical term of all stealing is stealing, but let's think about this. You have Fresh Start that's gotten over $400 million worth of direct awards from not even having a truck. And yet today on NTN and so on, you've seen that they're finally doing something, so they say, for the preschools, all the privately owned preschools in St. Lucia that have basically been out of work for a year. You know what they gave them? They gave them 1 box of gloves, 1 bottle of hand sanitizer, even though they promised them a year's supply of all of these things, 8 face shields for them, for the teachers or whatever, and a box of masks, 1 box of masks, about 30 in a box. No financial assistance, no stipend, no grant, no boost, nothing. But at the same time, Gail can buy 2 villas at $1.3 million. Sarah can be out of bankruptcy and have, Synergy has a house over in La Clery, even though she's running for Castries Central. Concreto's house? Nothing for that. Herod is busy, all kind of land acquisitions and everything. Nothing for that. I'm just saying, you look and you say, well, okay, it's like Rick was railing on about that. No politicians that have not been, there have been politicians who have been seen to not be corrupt. I don't think people thought or felt that Romanus Lancico was corrupt, or my father was corrupt, or Philip J. Pierre is corrupt. I'm sorry, I just have never heard, and if you have, please, let people know, break the story, put it in the Star front page where Philip Pierre did this, or my father did that, and I can give you, like I said, the UWP MPs, few and far between, but there are those who are not considered to be corrupt, whether it's perception or reality, I don't know. But tell me, how do you support Shasney and this government and pretend that you have a problem with corruption? Tell me, when the evidence is so clear, they don't even hide it. Good afternoon, caller. Hello? Caller, I can hear you in the background, but you have to start speaking.
If you go back and forth, you're going to lose this. I know.
Caller. Okay.
Hello.
Yes,
I'm here.
caller. Yes, go ahead, caller.
Yes, Chris. I just want to first of all, I want to congratulate you for taking Rick Wynn head on. You are the first public person, especially in the media, who has locked horns with Rick Wynn and called some of his assumptions, which he's been making for years, and his assertions, call them to question. So I want to congratulate you for that, first of all. You are doing a great job. One of the things I want to say to you is this. I've listened to you. I've been listening for close to, months now? Over a year now. Please don't change your stance. Remain as independent as you can be, because we need you to be the watchdog of the country.
Maybe
right?
we all need to be the watchdogs of the country. I'll do what I can.
Yeah, we all need to be. But you're a voice, and you've gained credibility over the time you've been on air, because I know you're irate about what's happening, but I kind of think that you'll be just as irate if it were happening with Labour in command.
Yep.
And I think we all need to be that impartial. It's our country, and I'm here and I tell you, I'm seething with rage. One of the things I can say though, right? They say power corrupts. He's never been prime minister before, so I don't know how it's going to play out. I think Philip J. Pierre, I've worked with him, I've campaigned with him because I grew up and worked in his constituency. He's the kind of guy who I think he has humility about him, right, which is one of the reasons probably he didn't rise to the top of the party earlier on. He's a worker. People think he's quiet now, but the thing about him is that he works behind the scenes. I think he learned that from your dad. I'm sure now the groundwork is laid for the Labour victory, right? I get that feeling. Right, so I just want to say congratulations on the work you're doing. Keep it going, and even if the government changes, please don't change the role.
Thank you very much, caller. Yeah. I will say this much, folks. When it comes to the revolution, a revolution is not something that's supposed to be a 50 years, whatever. I am not going to be sitting in this chair after elections. Nope, I'm not going to do it. I have other things to do. I have a documentary on Libo to do. I have other things that need to be done. This is my part for country. And I will pledge to you now, when I don't have to, that if Shasney wins, I am not going to continue the show or do anything for the next 3 to 4 years after that. It'll be 2025, 2026, when you may hear from me again. And if the Labour Party wins, likewise, because it'll be time for somebody else to come in and step in and do whatever. But for me, this mission is because no matter whether UWP was in office or Labour, I always got some sense that there was some at least general attempt to make progress for the people in the country. Even if I had my issues with the King administration or Kenny or whatever. But this is not governance. This is a cabal of guys that saw a weakness in the system, exploited the party that was in opposition at the time, and are now essentially running their own private business model with our money as their cash cow. So for me, all I would tell you is that St. Lucia has been exposed for better and for worse. And we have some deep questions that we need to answer. And an election is not going to solve that. Even, for example, you hear people say, you're going to have to make a sober decision this election. The truth of the matter is, elections are hardly ever sober. Not in the alcohol sense alone, but in terms of all of the mind games and all of the Cambridge Analytica and the sensationalism and the populism and all the bandwagoners that just want to be on the winning side with the winning song and the guys that look good and the people that look like they have a vibe. But let's look at it. Even Philip J. Pierre's detractors do not see him as being corrupt. Same was said of my father. So if it's from that school, great. But is that enough for you, St. Lucia? Are you ready for somebody that is not flashy, but does not tell lies verbatim over and over and come with fancy renderings and fabulous bullshit for you all the time? Are you ready for somebody who is not aggressive, just results oriented? I don't know. That's for you. And it's not that Philip Pierre or the Labour Party is the savior. The question is for us as a people. Like I go back to Rick. You stay and you in that 40, 50 years. Hypocrisy, everything. And at no point do you realize or even stop to think that maybe you might be part of the problem yourself. And what you even tacitly endorsing while trying to speak out of both sides of your mouth with bifurcated tongue is specious at best and non sequiturs at worst. I don't know. But St. Lucia, we need to answer these questions because never more than now have our children been watching us. And based on how we as parents and adults handle COVID and this economy and let Shasney and them do whatever they had to do, so far we're getting a failing grade. Now I'm out of time, but I am happy to see Rick Wayne back. I think he looks fantastic. At 83 years old, to have that dexterity, command of thought, there's no senility. I'm not being facetious there. And the man looks damn good. I will not even look that good in the next 3 years. Look at me, I already look like a write-off. But I will also say something. There's something teachable in what I call the matrix of St. Lucian politics, that people just don't get a sense of time and space and reality. So I wanted to close with a clip to show that maybe we all need to second guess ourselves, because here you have somebody who had already achieved greatness at such a young age, whether in music, in bodybuilding, in journalism, and all the rest of that, and yet somehow seems to be trapped in the matrix. I don't know if it's Kenny, I don't know if it's Shasney, but something isn't right.
Talk to me. Hello?
Yeah, good night.
Talk to me.
And good night to your guest.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yes, thanks.
Rick, I realized from the time Dr. Kenny Anthony fired you, you have something personal against him. I would like you to respond. I will hang up and I would like you to respond.
Hold on, don't go, man. I love that kind of question. First of all, I have heard that a million times, okay?
Yeah.
Don't go.
No.
But let us say that's true. That's a very good reason not to like him.
Yeah. Let me tell you.
No, take it easy. Wait there. Let us say I'm pissed off having campaigned for 12 years or more for freedom of expression and whatnot, that Kenny Anthony then fired 3 senators because they asked questions about a particular bill. One of my pet peeves with Kenny Anthony is I find he's a bit schizophrenic.
2,000 years later.
When Kenny Anthony came into office, when the whole country was virgin, all about the fact that Kenny Anthony was there in 79. It was as if Kenny Anthony arrived in St. Lucia, that Kenny Anthony was there.
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the host, co-host, guest, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of UTV or its affiliates.